Okay. So today we'll talk about how to become happy.
New Year.
New Year, right? I hope it's universal, but it's not. Unfortunately, you ask 100 people, 99% of the people says, I'm not happy. I have to do something. So the definition of happiness, we have twisted it so much that we have even forgotten what a real happiness can be. Uh, Unfortunately, we are projecting outside with our mind, body, and the outside context with the world, the people, objects, situation. So the pleasure that you derived from outside has become our happiness. So meaning all our sense organs, they need to be stimulated. Whether you like to see a beautiful scenery or a beautiful person or a tasty food, all those things, whenever your desire for that particular object or a person or a situation comes in contact with your desired person, object or a situation, we call it happiness. It's only stimulation of your sense organs. That's it, nothing more than that. But we call it happiness. So pleasure is only satisfaction of your sense organs. And that's what we have been calling happiness. So naturally everybody wants to be happy, and everybody is running in the direction where these sense pleasures can be stimulated. And that's how the whole world is going. So unfortunately, the direction which we are supposed to go, we never go, and we are always running in the wrong direction, and we are never going to reach to the point of happiness. Happiness is actually the state your mind will be in after receiving that pleasurable contact. So you feel that you are happy. And to some extent, if you're describing it, your state of mind at that particular moment, it is true. But it is the state of mind of happiness, derived from the pleasure seeking from outside. So pleasure leads to happiness for most of the people. But how long does the pleasure last? How long does your desires last? How long the desires keep on changing? And how long the objects, person or a situation is available on a continuous basis? But we want permanent happiness, but there is nothing like permanent in the world. You keep on changing your definition of pleasure, and the situations outside also change time to time. So the same thing that gives you pleasure right now does not give you pleasure 2 hours later, and it keeps on changing. So in this changing world, we want a permanent happiness for our mind, and it doesn't happen. So most of the time, happiness is like lightning that strikes in the dark night, and then lightning goes away, and then darkness returns again. So all our life, we keep on running towards thinking that outside objects or people or situation will make me happy. And then in this unfathomable, totally changing world, once in a while we come across that, and then for the rest of the time we keep on struggling to make it happen again and again and again. And everything keeps on changing. Everybody is variable mind. You knock on somebody's door because you want him or her to be with you, but he or she is knocking on somebody else's door. The whole circle keeps on going, and that makes the whole sansar going. Sansar means sansharan, movement. Movement is going on, and nobody knows where we are going. So somebody has to make sense out of it. So the whole depth of the knowledge of what is going on behind the mind, because I ask people all the time, he says, who wants to be happy? Everybody says, the whole world wants to be happy. And nothing wrong with that. Why do we want to be happy? Why do we want to be happy?
It's our nature.
It's our nature. It's our soul, consciousness. It means it's full of happiness. So we are seeking, except towards the consciousness where the real happiness is, we are going in the wrong direction. But we are searching, and there is nothing wrong with it. Searching happiness is always good. Only when you can find the futility in this situation of objects, people, situation, chasing, choosing. And at some point, if you start becoming mature and realize that this thing is not going to take me anywhere, this way I'm always dependent on something else or someone else to make me happy. And if that is the case, that means my happiness is going to be based on a sansar which is moving all the time, and sansar itself has no business to make me happy. On the contrary, sansar has a business to keep me unhappy all the time. Otherwise, who would even want to come to sansar? Because realize, only unhappy people want to become happy. It's simple as that. Happy person does not have to be happy. He's already happy. The whole commercial cycle which has been set up is only to make you realize that you are unhappy, so you keep on running all the time. And that makes the sansar going. And now it has skyrocketed into multi-billion-dollar industries, advertising, this and that, only to make you aware every single moment, the time you wake up till you go to sleep at night, that you are unhappy. You are unhappy. Find something to become happy. Go to restaurants, go to some jalsa, or go to see a play, go outside, it's a beautiful day, this and that, or whatever. Watch CNN, everything goes on and on and on to attract you. There are like 10 million things in front of you. One of those you will choose sooner or later, and you will get hooked on it. Yesterday I was watching a documentary on a Netflix. Very interesting story of a guy who grew up as Christian, but he was a rebellion. He was a rebel. He used to rebel with a lot of things, like conventional things, and he didn't want to accept these things, so he didn't find a whole lot in Christianity. He grew up in it, but then he set up, he was a very smart guy. He was a professor at Ivy League. Then he ran marathons, and then after at the age of 50, he had so much money he didn't know what to do. He had an apartment in front of the Venice Beach, California, prime locations and everything, but he still thought something was missing or lacking. So he suddenly took a turn, and first thing he did was he set up a motorbike gang. And he did whatever he wanted to do. Suddenly he came in contact with a Buddhist monk, and he took the vows of monkhood. He became a Buddhist monk. And then he got exposed to Eastern philosophies, Indian philosophies, Buddhist philosophies, and this and that, and he started going within. And then he started realizing, and then now he loves to educate because he was a professor at Ivy League College. So he says, I want to teach whatever has helped me. So he's conducting the lectures all over the country, and one of them was on the Netflix.
What is it?
So what he's saying is that whatever is happening and you labeling the situations is out of frustration. Say, for example, he gives an example. Say you are in a traffic jam and you think the situation is irritating to me. So you keep on honking. Out of frustration, what else do you do, right? So there are 400-500 cars sitting on, and they are all listening to your honk. They're also frustrated, so it's only adding to the irritation. But why do you call that situation irritating? Because you are getting irritated. Only your state of mind of getting irritated decides the situation to be irritating. So if you learn how to change your mind from irritable to not irritable, the outside situation doesn't matter. Because the outside situation being irritating is a definition, by definition, is showing your state of mind that you are irritated. So everything that we put the labels outside ultimately reflects our own state of mind. So if we are irritated, outside situation is irritating, to you at least. To someone else, he may be in a meditative mood and finds the best time to do meditation. He says, I'm going to be here for an hour, might as well meditate. He finds the best situation. I always wanted to do meditation. I never get time to meditate. I'm sitting here and enjoying. Lakshman. So for him, the situation is not irritating. So this starts the dialogue to go inside. Instead of labeling the outside situation, my home situation is like this, my spouse is like that, my child is like this, my this like that. All those things, my friends are like this, all this, we keep on labeling everybody as this, and this. But every single time we label outside, the second end of the arrow, trace it backwards and see what's going on within your mind. If that was pretty good, I really liked it. But the solution never comes after this. So he says, just be aware. So he said that why you are being irritated is because you didn't want this traffic jam. Expectations. And expectation is done by who? You. Right? So your expectations is what's creating the irritations. So you are in the center of everything. And that's ego. So self-centeredness is the ultimate cause of your suffering. That I want this, I want this, I want this, I don't want this, all these things centered around the ego state, right? So far so good. I was very happy that is pointing at least towards inside the problem. So the same thing, our happiness that we have kind of got hooked on the outside objects, we don't realize that because we wanted that object is pleasurable for us. If I don't drink beer and somebody gives me beer, to me it doesn't do anything. For somebody who loves to have beer, for him it will do a lot of things. So it again goes back to your state of mind. The state of mind when it desires something and the situations are everything is perfect and if the beer comes in, it's wonderful. But if the beer is 10 degrees warmer, you throw it away. Or you're at work and Lakshman comes and gives you the beer. Come on, Shani, come on, I have to see patients, I can't have beer. We were doing a Chicago marathon, right? At mile 20, they were giving beers. We had 6 miles to go. Wow. Nobody drank. Right. Because you really need to concentrate. If you have one wrong foot after running 20 miles, right, you have a major injury on your hand. Nobody drank. But once you finish, you have mountains full of beer sitting there. Drink as much as you want. So, a lot of variables are there. Because your mind is variable. Your desires are variable. Sansar is variable in offering. Also, if they had offered beer at mile 1, nobody would have even looked at it. We have 26 miles to go. What am I going to do? So, all this variability needs to be resolved. And this variability is because of the mind. But he doesn't go beyond that because he has never been beyond that. Just because you're a monk does not mean you have perfected the Buddha. All Buddhists are not Buddha and all Buddha don't have to be Buddhist. The same thing, all Jains are not Jinas and all Jinas don't have to be Jains. So there is something beyond religion. Religions have created these channels and you make you believe that you are okay. But it doesn't work that way. Ultimately, your inner soul and the mind is universal. And you as a monk may be suffering with the same desires as any other human being. So he doesn't go beyond that. And then his little bit of Christianity falls in and he says, I tell people to do something other than for yourself, right? So go and help someone or adopt a pet, for example. Now your focus is shifted away from yourself to someone else. So it dissolves your ego. But does it? It doesn't dissolve. So this secret, he doesn't know that. So Christianity believes in helping people, helping the poor, go and find somebody who needs help and things like that. And that will keep your ego down. And that will lead you to the peace and happiness. But everybody's different. Everybody's mind is different. Everybody has a different idea of happiness. Everybody doesn't fit into this either. So the complexity of happiness is much more deeper than this. Much more deeper than this. I'll tell you a joke. So one time, a guy is walking around in a jungle area, a little bit away from the town. There was a well which was not protected. The guy fell. Now, he had no way to climb. He was shouting and shouting, and nobody was coming to help him. He thought he was going to die. So suddenly, a Buddhist monk was passing by. So he suddenly heard him shouting, and he looks down. He says, please, please, get me out, I could die here. Buddhist monk says, this is all decided by karma. I cannot interfere with your karma. Your karma brought you up to this stage. Buddha said, you always have to finish your karmic cycle. If I interfere with it, if I save you, you go home and murder your wife, I will be responsible. I cannot do that. And he walks away. This is the Buddhist philosophy. I mean, his interpretation, not Buddha's interpretation. So he passes by. Then suddenly a Confucian philosopher passes by. The Confucius, the big philosopher of China, he believed in fixing the society. So that everything has to be the government. It is the government's responsibility to fix everything so that people don't suffer. So peoples are controlled by the republic, and the republic has to take all the actions so that everybody's lives are protected. So he passes by, suddenly he sees the guy, he's shouting, take me out, take me out. Aha, there is a major problem. There should have been a cover on this well. I'm immediately gonna go to the township and report it so they can fix all the covers on all the wells. And he walks away without saving the guy. So his another chance is gone. Confucian didn't help him either. So suddenly a Christian monk is passing by. He says, oh my God, what happened to you? He says, I was just passing by. There was no cover and I fell. Please help me out. Oh, sure, no problem. Somehow the Christian monk works on it, finds some twig around, makes some ropes or something, and he throws it down and he gets it on. The guy says, oh, I'm so happy. It looks like the Christianity is the best religion in the world. You help people out and all that. How do you do that? He says, we have a lot of compassion for people. He says, how do you really practice the compassion though? He says, like this, you fell and we saved your life, and it really makes me feel good that Christ is going to take me into heaven. He says, so what's your plan tomorrow? He says, I hope another person falls in this well. I can come and help him. So people under the spell that helping others takes you to heavens is another brainwash that we are living under. Because we don't realize that it is again the illusion of the mind. Mind means ego. Ego does not want to give up. It does not want to leave. At any cost, it wants to hold you down and makes you believe in itself that this strategy works out very well and that will take you to heavens. Mother Teresa, we know, wrote a last letter to Pope that she never saw God in her own life. Now, who can be better than Mother Teresa in helping the needies and the poor, right? So, in a very subtle way, the ego plays. That do this and you will get heavens. Again, you creating from the present moment to a future event. And you are utilizing your body and your mind to reach somewhere which has been illusioned to you that there is a heaven somewhere. Again, it's a trap. There is no difference between the guy who has no money and he wants to collect money, and somewhere down the road in the future he will have enough money, so he will be considered rich and powerful. What is the difference? If you are projecting yourself to be a rich millionaire, these guys are giving you the promises of the heavens. The spread of the present to the future remains the same. It's very subtle, and mind likes it because mind can be active, creating the ways for you to look to the future. Mind means future. Mind avoids the present. Why? Because that's the death of the mind. The present moment, what do? How else can you do anything different than this? There is no mind. Mind is not applicable in the present state. But everybody misses this. So whether you are a Buddhist monk or it doesn't matter, or a Christian priest or Jain sadhu, it doesn't matter. The depth has to come through inner reflection. It is our tendency to think. Think means thoughts, thoughts means mind. It's a self-contained phenomenon. It always have a deep inside, we have a belief that I have to do something to become happy. And that fundamentally is wrong. And that's where all these people giving documentaries on Netflix even, they're all full of fallacies and totally going in a wrong direction. But for the people who have never gone backwards, seems appealing. And there are thousands and thousands of people keep following. They never really go inside themselves. That's where the key to the happiness is lying. They don't get it. It's like a salesman. He's on to sell you something. He starts with a Jaguar or Mercedes. And if you don't buy that, say, okay, how about a scooter? Or how about a toothbrush? Something. Buy something from me. So sansar is just like that. It wants to catch your attention at any cost. And that's where sansar is all created by our five senses. And it's made out of the finite objects, which has a finite life, and all centered around the fourth dimension of time. Everything is bound with the time. So everybody goes through birth, growth, decay, death. So all your pleasures and pleasure-derived happiness also gonna go through birth, growth, decay, and death. There is no way out of it. Same beer, first sip, beautiful. Second, third, and fourth, you finish because you paid for it. Or worse, you didn't pay for it. Then your second and third comes in. So, but still, at the end of second or third or fifth, whatever, it still comes to an end. The pleasure that was derived from the beer was born, it grew, started going down, and it stops. Oh no, don't give me any more. I can't handle. Same thing with any pleasure. Even from the person. Before they are like lovebirds. Oh, you give me so much pleasure. And then another 2 months, 2 years goes in. Oh, okay, you're good, you're good. And then another 5, 10 months or 2 years goes in. You know what, you're irritating me, And then you say, okay, let's call it quits, it's not worth it, you just. So everything is born, is grows, it decays, and death. So whenever your projection is outside, there is a sure sign of suffering. Whether your projection on helping needy people, same thing. If you have a perseverance, you can do it for whole life. But we're talking about communion with God. Does it happen? No. But why? Why doesn't it happen? Because God is beyond these 4 dimensions. It's just not possible. If it was that possible, then everybody would be helping the needies. There was a joke. One kid asks his father, he says, why do you do all this charity work and we go and give the food to the people who are, and this and that? He says, well, because Christ said that we should help people so that, people who are poor, people who are in the needs and all that. He says, but why does the God create this kind of people? He says, because we are rich, we're supposed to help these people. He says, who created us? He says, God created us. He says, but who created these needy people? God created. Oh, so now I get it. So the God creates rich people so that they can go and help the needy people that He Himself created. So both are created, and then you having pleasure in giving and they having pleasure in receiving. Either way, the cycle goes on, and we believe that God is somewhere around the corner. So if you help 10 people, I help 10,000 people, I have a better chance of, again, you're talking about quantity. Anything that can be duplicated in a quantitative fashion cannot take you, because quantity means 4-dimensional thing. If you have $1 in your pocket, you're $1 rich. If I have $10 in my pocket, I'm $10 rich. What's the difference? Difference may be between you and me quantitatively. Qualitatively, we are the same. We believe that I'm the $1 rich. I believe I'm $10 rich. But both of us, richness is hooked on the dollars, not on ourselves. Our focus is not on ourselves at all. So our inner consciousness, how alive it is and how far you are from the sansar, should actually define how happy you are. Instead of that, our happiness has been hooked on how many friends you have, how many parties you attended, how many bank accounts you have, how many zeros you have at the end. All those things are useless because they are, if the life does not take it away, death will take it away. Has no value at all. So we need to understand, so this depth that is needed to go beyond the mind, I don't see it anywhere. And yet there are throngs and throngs of people going and listening and this and that. They feel that they did something. The Sadgurus have, all those things. And I have a friend, he's a cardiologist. Every time he runs after Sadguru. I said, nothing wrong with him. His message is good. But you have to follow it. Just because following Sadguru doesn't mean you're going to be enlightened. But he does that. He likes to spend money and goes with him and all these lectures and this. I said, well, he says, maybe someday. Maybe someday. I said, no, the time is now. So this is how the whole mechanism of the sansar works. That's why Osho says, dhan chaho ya dhyan chaho, pad chaho ya paramatma chaho, chah hi sansar hai. Any chah is sansar. So do not desire anything. And then what happens? When your desires disappear, the heavenly grace just flows. Because as long as you have a desire, the ego is alive. And in the path of spirituality, the quality matters. Quantity doesn't matter. Even if you have one desire alone is enough to block the entry of the God in your life. God says, as long as you believe you're doing it right, who am I to interfere? You carry out. That's why people waste their lives and lives and lives after lives seeking swarg and walking away from nark and heavens and this and that, and all these promises are created by the business people. Whether you are in the business of selling Toyota or you sell God or heaven, it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, enlightenment doesn't happen. All these great souls became enlightened. They taught everything to go within. Nobody wants to. Everybody wants to follow. So going within on the path of spirituality, the ego has to die 100%. Total liquefaction of the ego. And as long as the ego is alive, your progress on spirituality cannot happen. And if the ego is holding it up, it's like you're keeping your pot upside down. Heavenly rain is coming, but it's not going to do anything as long as you're not ready to accept him. So you have to realize there is something wrong with you. You're wanting, there is something wrong. That's why I gave an example of the lion sitting on the cage. It's a huge cage, infinite cage, and he wants the cage to be empty. No, everything has to disappear, but he doesn't want to move. Then the cage cannot be empty. It's oxymoron situation. I want God in my life, then you have to disappear. Any desire-driven activities itself leads to suffering because you're going back to the sansar, expecting something. And when you expect something, things don't happen. And this expectation itself was the wrong direction in which you were going. And that's why the direction has to be fixed. And for that, meditation is extremely important, because meditation lets you see the source of your suffering, source from where your desires are springing. Desires are springing because of your dissatisfaction with yourself. Why would you want to have a desire? Because you think that something is missing. Why Now analyze this language. Something is missing. Something is missing means you have a quantitative mind. Again, I have $10, he has $1, I'm rich. I'm comparing myself. Or he has $1, he wants $10, he wants to be rich. All these comparisons leads to desire to have more, right? So desires are generated in the mind from the wrong interpretation of ourselves to be finite, that I don't have enough. At the finite level, I can only make certain amount of money, I can only be certain inches tall, I can be only certain number of houses I have. All these things can be compared. And in a comparative mode, you're always going to have dissatisfaction. Even if you become the richest guy in the world, do you think that will lead to happiness? No. Then you will find out something else to become unhappy. If the money was, for you, money was the source of, supposed to be source of happiness, and it's not, then the richest guy should be the happiest guy, but it's not either. Lenin was the biggest, ruler of the Communist party. He was short. His legs, somehow his lower portion of his body was not made to reach to the ground. So he always sat on a chair which was covered up in the front, so nobody can see that his legs are not touching. He felt ashamed. After ruling the whole country like Russia, he felt ashamed that his legs could not. So there are so many parameters you cannot choose to become unhappy. Mind does that. And then it makes you going. Napoleon Bonaparte was short guy. Even after winning so many wars for France, one time he was trying to hang a picture, and suddenly one of his generals who was taller, he says, he came and said, let me help Mr. Bonaparte, I can reach higher. He got so mad. He says, not higher. You are taller than me, but you cannot be higher than me. And it was a very insulting thing for him just because his height. After winning so many wars. So in this sansar, nobody has won anything, ever. And there is nowhere to win the sansar, because sansar is infinite. That's why we gave the example of Alexander the Great. Before he was living, he met Diogenes. Diogenes was a great philosopher, like Socrates. And he was living on the edge of the town. So before Alexander left out for a trip to winning war, he wanted to win the world and this and that. Somebody told him, he said, go and talk to Diogenes. He says, why? Because he says he has some piece of wisdom, maybe he can teach you something, that you can win wars and all this. So he calls for Diogenes. Diogenes is not in the mood of going to the king's court. He says, I'm not coming. He says, what are you talking about? This is Alexander the Great calling you. He says, he can kill you if you don't follow his command. He says, since I have decided I'm going to be free from everything, I'm free from my body also. It doesn't matter. You can kill me if you want. But the soldiers didn't think it was right to kill. So Alexander does make a point to come to him, to see him in person. This guy was sitting on the edge. They didn't believe in wearing any clothes. He was just sitting there, enjoying the sun. And the glory on his face, the brightness on his face, satisfaction and the happiness on his face was so heavenly. So Alexander, he says, I feel I'm jealous of you. How come you're so happy? He says, forget about that. What are you doing? I see all these horses and elephants are passing by, the soldiers are marching, and he says, what are you doing, trying to do? He says, I want to win the whole Europe. He says, okay, then what are you going to do? Then I'm going to go to Asia Minor, all the Middle East, and he says, after? Then I'm going to go for Asia Major, India, China. I want to win everything. And then what? Then I want to win the whole world. He says, after that, what are you going to do? Then he had to stop. He doesn't know any other world to win. It always comes to a point where you feel short. You feel short of your goals. Your goals will reach to a limit, and beyond that you won't know what to do. So Alexander said, well, at this point, I'm all made up my mind, I'm going to do it, but someday I'd like to come and sit with you and be like you. He said, who is stopping you? Take your clothes off. Enjoy with me. Enjoy the sun. So he never got the lesson. He won on the war. He died at the age of 32. And he wanted to see his mother out of everything because they were not clicking, him and his wife somehow. But he wanted to see his mother at the time. So he was rushing back after winning all these kingdoms. He was rushing back to see his mom, and he died of, I think, tuberculosis or something like that. And he never made it. But the story goes on. They say two of them met again in the heaven, Diogenes and Alexander. So Diogenes was in the front. Alexander was right. A couple of hours, they died 2 hours apart. And so Alexander makes a joke. Say, here again, fakir and the king meet again. He says, yes, I know. I am the king and you are the fakir. You kept on running all your life for something. You are the poor guy. I am the rich guy. The one who has no desires has the richness. And why? Because desires are locked within the four-dimensional structure. Whatever you desire will be locked in four dimensions. Even if you have $1 million, at the end of the year, inflation will take, even if you don't touch it, you lock it up in the safe, inflation takes the value down. So no matter which way you look at it, we have to realize what is the direction we want to go. So whenever you are locked in the finite world, finite suggestions, finite actions will never lead to God. Impossible. So even the Christian philosophy of helping this will take you to heaven is full of fallacies. Because at a very subtle level, even though it makes you believe that it's a good thing to do, it is from achieving, going beyond the four-dimensional life into the direction of the godliness, it does not help. So at some point, when you try to meditate, you come to the very subtle spot and you realize that this is where my consciousness, my inner energy is flowing outwards. Just watch it. Don't do anything. At some point, you will realize that my energy is feeding into these thoughts, my mind. And then thoughts leads to action, and action is in the outside world, connecting maybe to the future goals. The whole sequence of this, there is something wrong. All that you can watch with the awareness. You become aware of it. The awareness itself has the life force that feeds into these thoughts and ideas and beliefs and actions. All those things are fed by only single source, the consciousness. Consciousness is godliness. You realize that when I want certain food, I create thought channel for that food. And when I want to diet and exercise, I create another channel of thoughts that no, I want to exercise and lose weight and this and that. Both the things are fed by the neutral energy, the consciousness. The neutrality, the sthit prajna state, which does not take side of anything, is the ultimate reservoir of energy that feeds to the whole universe. The dark energy they call, that's springing from inside. Now that's what they think. That's splitting all these galaxies away. And the dark mass is holding the galaxies together because otherwise the galaxies will fall apart. So you need a gravitational force to hold it. That's the dark matter. So they know it's a matter, but it's holding the galaxies together. But there is dark energy that is springing from inside. That's what the Hindus call urja. Urja is springing from inside, and that's driving all these galaxies away. That's within you also. That's unnamed, fathomless, shapeless, nirgun, nirakar, omnipotent, omnipresent. It's because it's very ambiguous. Going from the form to the formless is a major step. Major step because you've never been there. Anytime you are thinking having ideas or beliefs or listening to someone, doing some actions, you were locked in those 4 dimensions. You have never stepped out. And now you're stepping into a zone which is totally abstract. You cannot define. There is no characteristics. And you feel you're dead, literally. Because your ideas of having possessions were also locked in 4 dimensions. So now you're in infinite zone and you get totally lost. You don't know what to do. So experience of that infinity lets you settle down. And then you create your own new permanent residence in that. And then you can observe your mind, your thoughts, your beliefs, everything in front of you. The desires will still keep on coming because we are humans. We are ingrained with so many desires which we have accumulated. One or the other, they're going to keep popping up. But Tao of physics, Tao teaching written by Lietzu is a very beautiful. They say that Tao is the unnamed entity. It's a nameless existence. You perfect it first and stifle all your desires with it. So as soon as desires come up, which is leading you to the finite world, you stifle it with infinity that has built up within yourself. Through repetitive meditation, the consciousness has become so powerful, this desire seems so futile, and it automatically drops off. And then with a little practice, ultimately you settle down and you reach to the state of no desires. Then it's enlightenment. So all these depths are not there. So you have to find your own depth. Nobody's gonna, even if somebody has a depth, they cannot give you the depth. Depth is within you. So this is how it works. So when you reach to that state of infinite consciousness, all of a sudden from owning 1 million or 2 million or 3 million or 10 million, now you are owning infinite. You cannot even call it own because your hands fall short. The God gives you so much. He gives you so much that you feel satisfied. You can not equate the godliness with possessions. That, oh, I got so much. Again, that's the language of sansari. You don't get anything. There is nothing to get. But the satisfaction that you get from it is priceless. And that's the same thing. Whether you have a $1 million worth of satisfaction or you have $10 million worth of satisfaction, you cannot, there is more to go. But this satisfaction is total satisfaction because this is infinite. There is nothing, there are no limits. You have limitless satisfaction, you have limitless joy that springs from within, and that feeds into the mind which was restless. So the restless mind settles down, and eventually the mind develops a permanent state of happiness. And when that happens, you don't have to run anymore. So this is the mechanism how one should operate while meditating. And this is how you develop a state of happiness, because pleasure is not the way to become happy. The joy that springs from within is the way to become happy. Because sansar is finite. Sansar only creates beggars out of you. You keep on begging. You want a girl, she wants someone else, but you want her anyway. If she doesn't become yours, you die. Beggars, begging, in helping others also creates another 50% of the society as beggars. And it perpetually feeds on each other. One is thinking that he's helping and going to heaven. Another is thinking that, look at this stupid guy. He works for me, basically, and comes and helps me. So all this cycle feeds each other. We need to go beyond that, and the only meditation can take you. And then with that state of joy, once you come out in the world, you cannot make anybody else happy, but you can at least express your joy. And everybody around you starts sensing it, that you are happy for no reason. You don't have to run for anything and you're still happy. Why? Maybe someday they will also pick up and try to follow the same path that you have taken. And that's what all the people who are enlightened did it. But who follows? I want the latest iPhone. All right, so much for today.
I want to travel the world.
Exactly.